about him being the permanent. And he goes, no, I just took the interim tag off. As if the president of the school really didn't know what interim meant.
So instead of interim, he's acting?
So he's back to just the acting athletic director, Burge Osbury.
So for like 2 days, everybody thought this guy was the actual athletic director.
Yeah.
And that's the way they framed it.
Yeah, I wonder if Verge thought that. Do you think Verge thought he was the actual full-time athletic director?
If I'm the interim and you pull the interim tag off, 99.9% of the time, unless it's LSU in this particular point in history, means you're now the full-time guy. But no, he's now the actor. Interim to acting, and we'll make a final decision later on. Brian Kelly, WBRZ, I forget which station, had the exclusive email that Brian Kelly sent to Scott Woodward. But Brian Kelly sends an email that leaks out in Baton Rouge media, and it's to Scott Woodward, to Verge Osbury, Julie Cromer, and Austin Thomas. And it was a Sunday late afternoon. Scott and team. Very nice email, blah, 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 blah. As we discussed in a meeting, I'm open to your desire to reach a settlement of what's owed to me under the contract, although, of course, it would have to make sense financially, from Brian Kelly. But he's very thankful in that, a very nice letter, I'm sure, that was written by his representation. But in there, he says, listen, I know you guys expressed wanting to reach a settlement. I'm open to that, but it's got to make sense for me financially. How can a settlement make sense to me financially if I'm not getting all the money I'm owed?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there must be some kind of wiggle room for LSU, because I would assume his agents, I mean, if you're cut and gone and you've been fired publicly mid-season, you want every single dime they owe you.
But I guess if it's spread out over time, we can come up with some lump sum and get it all up front.
So what was it, 58? Is that right? Was that the number?
Something like
58?
that, yeah.
So if I owe you $58 million over, let's say, 6 years.
Yeah.
Or I'll give you 30 right now. Which one are you going with?
I'm going to take 30 right now.
I'm going to take 30 right now.
Yeah.
30 right now, because Brian Kelly can have one of these jobs next year.
That's right.
Be making another $10 million a year.
Or if he doesn't, he's got 30 right now, and he can, you know.
I wonder if he'll look to the NFL.
I wonder if the NFL would look to him, though.
Do you?
There's only 32 jobs.
No, I get it, but I mean, you hired Liam Cohen.
I know, but
that's a good point.
I mean, what does Brian Kelly bring to the table?
Brian Kelly's a hell of a coach. I don't know why people think this guy can't coach.
Well, he just got fired. I mean, that's the reason why.
He didn't call plays, right?
I don't think so. No,
I don't think so. Yeah.
I mean, I know the NFL coaches. They're not just souped-up coordinators, but most of the good ones, Sean McVay calls his own plays, right? So, I mean...
Well, some of the bad ones do, too. I mean, Mike McDaniel...
Well, Brian Kelly has won, up until he got to LSU, won a championship everywhere he was. And I just don't think he forgot how to coach. And by the way, I mean, the outcomes, it wasn't like LSU was a disaster. It just didn't make sense what was going on.
It just doesn't seem to me in the NFL that you need a CEO head coach. You've got a general manager to handle that. To me, in the NFL, I mean, you need a head coach, obviously, but I'm okay.
Get all your favorite Next Round gear all in one place. NextRound.store. From our Next Round hats to the logo tees to the all-time best-selling Y'all Can Have the Rest shirt, you can look your best by shopping with us at NextRound.store. Take the Next Round anywhere with NextRound.store.
It's bow time. Tired of choosing between sweet and savory? Why not have both? Introducing Bojangles' new Chicken and Bowberry Waffles. The bold Cajun chicken filet you love, now drizzled with a Bowberry honey glaze and sandwiched between two warm waffles. Which means your favorite meal of the day just met your new favorite dish. And lucky for you, it's served all day. But it's only here for a limited time, so try Chicken and Bowberry Waffles at Bojangles today. It's bow time.
Have you been injured in an 18-wheeler accident, company truck accident, car accident, or work-related accident? Call Alabama's largest personal injury firm. Alexander TNR Trial Attorneys will fight for every dollar you deserve, and it won't cost you a dime. Trust me. What do you say, man?
Call me, Alabama.
Call 659-777-7777 or go to Shenara.com.
No representation made that the legal services provided are better than legal services provided by other attorneys.
now, Monday Morning Live as we get going, 8 o'clock. Favorite time of the week because we talked to Tom Luginbill of ESPN all morning long. Next round comes up in an hour. Lugs, good morning to you, man. How are you?
Good morning, Jim. How are you doing?
Fantastic. November, it's that wonderful time of year where we see some teams, and in the ACC's case, some conferences just break down and fold under the pressure. We'll talk about the ACC in a moment. As we always do, we go Alabama and Auburn first and then around to the big stories in the country. Listen, I've gone to LSU Alabama games since 1988. That was probably one of the more meh atmospheres, lead-ins because of LSU's coaching situation. Alabama fans brought it as much as they could, but in that game, it was a 20-9 defensive domination for Alabama. I can't describe it any other way. Alabama's defense did everything they could to smother everything LSU tried.
I thought Yonsei Pierre is continuing to grow and become a one-man wrecking crew defensively. I think with his 2 sacks, the forced fumble did lead to the turnover, pressure, and then the red zone defense for Alabama. I think, the ability to lock down, not allow points. I mean, I know LSU's had their struggles, but LSU still has athletes. LSU has players, right? You're coming off of an emotional week. Coach is fired. You've shifted the staff around a little bit. And, if you're Alabama, you're like, what are we going to get from these guys? We can see what we've seen on tape, but are they going to come in with a different mindset? Are they going to completely reinvent the wheel and do some things we haven't seen yet? And so I think it's a lot to prepare for when you go into that matchup in a rivalry type of contest. I'll say this. I got to give LSU credit on defense as well, though. I mean, I thought LSU did a really nice job. In fact, I would look at it this way. When you look at how LSU and South Carolina have chosen to defend Alabama, I think you're going to expect to see some more of that coming up. Because on tape, if you're going to choose to zone up Alabama, you are going to get picked apart. If you think you're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage and then play 7 or 8 on the back end, Ty Simpson is just going to divvy through the progression. He's going to find the open hole, and off you go. With South Carolina and what LSU chose to do is crowd the line of scrimmage a little bit more, create a little bit more pressure, and I didn't think the running backs pass protected very well this week. And so I think that's something that's got to improve. But when you look at the Alabama passing game, as good and as efficient as it's been in the intermediate game, they actually statistically haven't had a ton of success going vertical and just driving the ball. They had the big one to Lotzie Brooks there in the second quarter. But I think teams are going to start to say, all right, we're going to crowd the line of scrimmage. We're going to come after you. We don't believe you can effectively run the ball. And now we're going to see if we play man, can you get the ball into tight spots if you are under pressure? Because that's the thing. Affecting Ty Simpson has been the one thing that people who have chosen not to come after him have not been able to do with a base front.
You're such a TV guy. I start off talking defense with you, and before you're even through with your own answer, you're back to talking offense. What are you doing, man?
Well,
come on.
Because it affected him.
Yeah, it did. It did. On Ty Simpson. Yeah. I've seen a couple of NFL guys break it out that even in a game like this, when he throws 277 and they score 20 points, that what he does is so impressive. And they were talking about how he pauses and resets protections and picks up zone blitzes and things like that. You're a tape geek. You look at all this stuff. You play the position. How people like me, I can't see that, right? When I'm watching, I mean, I see him talking and stuff, but is he elite at reading what is? I mean, Blake Baker's dialing it up. Talk to me about what you see Ty Simpson doing as a mental game of getting that offense set. Sometimes, I mean, home games are the worst because that play clock gets under 5. He's still adjusting, and you hear the whole crowd go, and then he snaps it at 1 second. He's in total control. It's got to be impressive to people like you that watch that kind of stuff.
Well, and it's even more impressive when you're talking about a guy with 9 starts.
Yes.
Now, I mean, we're not talking about somebody that's been a 2-year starter, a 3-year starter. They've got a lot on his plate, obviously. You can see that pre-snap. He is in charge of protections. He is in charge of, doing the box count to check, out of something or into something, based on what the numbers dictate, all the while having to have your eyes up, see your play clock in front of you, know what you can get after. There's so much going on at 100 miles an hour before the ball's even snapped. And then, by the way, after that, you've got to produce a positive result. And so I've been incredibly impressed with his poise, his composure. It's very clear that he's put a lot of time in to the offense and what his responsibilities are within the offense, because he's been unbelievably efficient, but maybe more so than that, consistently efficient. And I think that is something, when you carry that over all the time, that's something you rely upon. I mean, that's a foundational pillar, not just for the offense, but for the entire team.
Yeah. And he's doing this, Luke's, and Brown brought up a good stat comparing to DeBoer's last year at Washington, the team that played for the national championship. Alabama is running it about as effectively as that Washington team did.
Yeah.
So maybe me and about 100,000 other Alabama fans are expecting too much just because it's that crimson and white uniform to see a traditional run game. But I'm looking here at my big stat sheet. Daniel Hill, 7 carries, 21 yards. Jam Miller, 8 carries, 13 yards. But maybe this is just who this team is. But back to Ty, that's what he's doing, all that he's doing with that run game.
Well, Jim, you hit on something there that I think is really important. It gets glossed over and people aren't willing to say it, is that might just be what this team is this year.
Right.
That just might be the version. And no matter how much they try to knock their head against the wall, you know, how creative they try to get to create maybe some more plays in the run game. I know we talked several weeks ago about playing under center a little bit to try to create a little bit more there. But it just might be who they are. And first off, look across college football right now. If you're an Alabama fan, you're a fan of college football, like, look how hard everybody is making it on themselves. I mean, some of these games, you're just sitting there going, oh, my goodness, you know, and it hurts to watch it. And then this is a deficiency that Alabama has. And there are, it's the same deficiency that Oklahoma has. Oklahoma's even worse. And so I'll say this, though, it was an improvement, because Jam Miller averaged 1.6 yards a carry versus Tennessee, or 1.3 yards a carry versus Tennessee, 1.6 versus LSU.
That's right.
We got an uptick. We got an uptick.
Moving up there. I want to go back to what Ty Simpson does in the final seconds, and literally it's seconds, of every half now. I sent out a tweet. Everybody that covers Alabama has been reporting on this. It really jumped out at the Georgia game, getting some points going into the locker room. They did it again this past week. That Lottie Brooks reception at 53-yard bomb, perfect throw, perfect catch from the young receiver. That was in that drive that set up the Ryan Williams touchdown. I don't know if it's 5 or 6 times now Alabama in the final minute of the half going to the locker room has produced points and a touchdown. Defensive touchdown for Xavier Brown against Tennessee. What does that do for a team? And again, what is for Ty Simpson being able to run that type of offense? What does it take to be successful in something like that?
Well, first of all, what it does for the team is you take all the momentum into the locker room and you take the air out of the other sideline. And then particularly, dependent upon who gets the ball coming out of the third quarter, then that leads to that whole middle eight discussion, right? And not to get off topic here, but that's where Georgia was dominant this week against Mississippi State. So I think it's a momentum, it's an energy deal. Obviously, it separates the point gap, but then coming out of it, if you can capitalize as well, is critical. I actually think that Ty Simpson likes to play faster. Like if they decided, hey, we're just going to go no huddle all the time, he'd probably be really, really good in that role, because I think he's so in command of understanding and then not thinking and just playing and pitching and catching. And to be honest with you, it might actually help their run game a little bit. But I just think he's comfortable in that. Not to say that they're going to go to that or should go to that, but when you put him in that scenario, he flourishes. But I think the momentum side of it, of going into the locker room when that happens, man, it can be demoralizing to the other sideline.
Yeah. Hey, and listen, you got to credit Lottie Brooks and Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams and Isaiah Horton and Josh Cuevas. To run that type of offense and be successful, it's not just the quarterback. He's got to be spectacular, but those receivers running those routes, getting back, running those routes, making those catches, getting open. It is such a unit kind of thing, right?
Oh, there's no question. And sometimes, when you get in that type of scenario, you may decide as an offense, okay, hey, listen, if we're doing something intermediate or deep and we've got to get back, maybe you're calling the formation, you just get back and you ask these guys to have to play all 4 spots because where they got to line up may be quicker to get there than go onto the other side. And so there are variations and nuances to this to help expedite the speed of it by not asking maybe the tight ends or the wide receivers to switch sides. If getting them back to the line of scrimmage quicker keeps them on the same side, they got to know all of that stuff, And again, it's a very, very well-oiled machine. But, this is what we saw out of Kalen DeBoer at Indiana when he had Michael Penix. It's what we saw out of him at Fresno State. Clearly, we saw it out of Washington. Now in year 2, they really seem to be settling in. I mean, this is what he is and what Ryan Grubb is an offensive philosophy.
Okay, one more thing on Alabama on this win over LSU, 20-9 rivalry win for the Tide at home against those Tigers from the Bayou. And then we'll talk Oklahoma, Alabama near the end of our 45 minutes here together to start our Monday morning live, brought to you by roback.com. Promo code TNR20 gets you 20% off. There's the QR code. Save 20% with that QR code, TNR20, or roback.com, because we crave activity. Alabama's defense in the second half, man. They are only giving up 8.83 points per game in the second half versus SEC opponents. That from Nick Kelly of AL.com. 13th in the country in scoring defense. You mentioned Pierre. That Nakai Hill-Green, the transfer in from Colorado, Lawson and Jefferson, that secondary, and Kane Womack's scheme here. Listen, I know Nussmeier got benched. They were to the Von Buren guy from Mississippi State, that quarterback. Yeah. But this is not just a one-time thing. This Alabama defense, specifically in the second half, has clamped down on SEC opponents.
Yeah, they finish games, man. And I think when they're the type of defense that when they smell blood in the water, they just cranks up and amps up the aggressiveness. They come after you. And I'll give you another guy, too, defensively that is really coming on is Red Morgan.
Yes.
Holy smokes, man. He's really starting to develop and come along. This is a unit that now at all 3 levels, and let's not forget about LT Overton, too.
Right.
All right. When
young Dijon Lee, too. Young Dijon Lee back there in the secondary.
Oh, man, what a specimen he is. We had him in the Under Armour game last year. Wow. So it's a group that I think they're playing with confidence. They can get home so they can affect the quarterback. And then it's not a team that you just see giving up explosive. I think if you keep the ball in front of you, good things happen. And when you come after people and you can keep the ball in front of you and you can tackle in the open field, because, hey, listen, you decide to make choices. We've talked about this, feast or famine, high risk, high reward. You're going to give up some shots. You're going to give up some plays on the ground and through the air. But if by and large you can keep it in front of you and make the tackle, they're going to get home enough where they're going to create turnovers, they're going to create negative plays, and that's really been the difference in the second half for Alabama defensively.
Boy, old school Alabama fans sit there and they watch them run around and they're throwing their bodies around, and when they are hitting, they are laying the leather lately. It's been fun to watch them morph into this, and as Kalen DeBoer told us in postgame, I'm sitting there and I saw it come from Kalen DeBoer's lips. He wasn't satisfied about the way this team played against LSU, wasn't just satisfied for the win. He knows they can play better. They've got to play better. But he mentioned the defense. Those big explosive plays are getting fewer and fewer every week, which only makes Alabama tougher. All right, let's move on to Auburn and Vandy and then everything else around in the country. Auburn goes to Vandy, and they score a lot of points. And they played with a lot of enthusiasm. They still lose the game, but DJ Durkin brought some life to that team, it looked like. That team looked differently. They walked differently than they had under Hugh Freeze.
It was a team that was ready to play. It was a team that had pride, which I think is really, really important. And the shame of it is, if you're an Auburn fan, is the one weekend where the championship level defense gets gobbled up happened to be this weekend. And it's a little bit of just a reflection, I guess, of Auburn's season to some degree, because that defense had been playing lights out the entire year and then ran into a bit of a buzzsaw, obviously. The offense to me, I thought, was really nicely designed to focus on the playmakers that are there and get them the ball at all costs, right? Whether that's Eric Singleton, whether that was Cam Coleman, they were able to be productive on the ground. But even if it was at a detriment, even if it was a bit forced, it was downfield and you had one-on-one, take the shot, man. Go see if he makes the play. And it's something I think was super lacking, clearly offensively, along with, the penalties and, a lot of the third down issues we've seen throughout the season that have plagued Auburn and the inconsistent quarterback play. But this was a concerted effort offensively to get the ball, and it wasn't complicated, and they weren't out there to out-scheme anybody. Let's get our best players the ball in their hands, and the results spoke for themselves.
Before we move on from DJ Durkin to talk more about that offense, I'm just a filthy casual, but because he's the head coach and had to do other things, is that why the defense maybe didn't play to the normal standard? That's just a casual mind saying that.
Right. Listen, there could be something to read into that. Obviously he's got a lot on his plate now, and he's not he's not going to be as hyper-focused on just worrying about what he was responsible for. But I also say you got to give Vanderbilt a lot of credit. Diego Pavia accounted for 489 yards. Vanderbilt had 6 runs of 10 yards or more. They had 9 completions of 15 yards or more. Those are explosive plays. We have not seen Auburn give up on defense at all. So I think you got to credit Vanderbilt to some degree, and the quarterback is just such a guy that might have just caught him on the wrong week. But I think it's fair to look at it that way, Jim, because there is a lot going on, and maybe to some degree in some areas something does get missed, or something doesn't have maybe the detail or the attention to it that it would have normally. But it is encouraging to see what they did offensively, see them battle, see them compete to the very, very end, because you're right, there was energy in that locker room, and to see how emotional DJ Durkin was, I was sitting there watching that. And I know it was a tough loss, and I know obviously you got Alabama is going to be coming up here shortly, but is he a guy that you look at? Is he a football coach that you look at for that job when you consider what the options are out there on the open market? I don't know.
Listen, I know the Auburn fans that I'm around, I think they'd love to thread a needle. They'd love to keep DJ Durkin as the defensive coordinator and hire a offensive-minded coach maybe. I don't know. Obviously, he loves coaching. You could tell that in his passion this week. Yeah. He loves those players. He said all the right things post-game. I hate to always bring up Nick Saban in references, but I had some chances to be around him in my time. He always thought the world of the coach that DJ Durkin was. Tried to hire him several times in Tuscaloosa. So we'll see what happens in that Auburn coaching search down the road. I don't know how fans would react. I'm not going to pretend to know how they would react. But I know the guy knows ball, can coach it up, and really poured a lot into it this week. Ashton Daniels, 31 of 44, 353, 2 touchdowns. Then he ran 89 for 2 touchdowns. I didn't know that kid had that kind of game.
He hadn't shown it to this point. I actually had a couple of his games at Stanford when he was there, and it just – and I think a lot of it, too, is are you in the right place with the right people? And maybe this week things just clicked. And like I said, they really hyper-focused on saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to overcomplicate it. We're not going to pull things out of left field to try to see if they work. We're going to go in with a strict game plan. And I thought he did a great job. It was his best performance as a college player so far.
Yeah, and by the way, Derek Nix calling plays. This is from Justin Hokanson, Auburn Live. the most yards by an Auburn offense since 2019, Mississippi State. That's pre-pandemic, 563 total yards. Nix is a play caller. Like you said, man, he just told Ashton Daniels, hey, take a shot. What do we have to lose? Take a shot. And they unlocked the receivers. Cam Coleman, 10 catches, 143. Eric Singleton, 11 catches, 102.
Yep.
Simmons had 2. Perry Thompson had 4. You had all these toys. Play with them, man. Play with them.
Yeah. Find ways to get them the ball. That's what offensive football is about, matchups. How do I get our best guy matched up against your greatest deficiency and do it as many times as we can? And listen, that wasn't a chump defense they're playing against.
No.
Right? I mean, that's the thing that I think is impressive as well, too. So it just goes to show you, and I know Auburn fans have got to be sitting there going, having those type of what could have been thoughts, and that's a shame. That's human nature. Fair or unfair, that's what it is. But let's see if they can build upon it, right? I mean, that's the thing is, can they continue to go out and play good on offense?
Yeah, bye week, then a setup game, and then they get Alabama. So, if you're scoring at home, that's almost 3 full weeks you can prepare for Alabama.
Yeah.
Take your shot. Take a shot. All right, around the country we go on Monday Morning Live. ESPN's Tom Luginbill, brought to you by our friends at Roback.com. Promo code TNR20 gets you 20% off. Roback.com. You see the QR code on your screen. Use that. Great for the holidays right now. Activewear is fantastic for the golf, the hoodies, the pants. I love their pants. Save 20% with the code TNR20 right there. Roback.com. Roback.com. Indiana was beat, man. It's second down. It's second and 17. You're on your own 13-yard line. You're behind on the road at lowly Penn State. You'd just been sacked. And then Fernando Mendoza, I don't know if you believe in Heisman drives, Heisman moments, but he put a drive together. And everyone's going to talk about Omar Cooper Jr.'s catch, and it was the best maybe in a decade. But Charlie Becker, the tight end, I think he's tight end, the one he caught on the sideline was just as acrobatic. They threaded that needle in 1:30 with no timeouts on the road to go down there and win that game. Tell me your reaction watching that happen for the Hoosiers.
Well, number one, the first thing that came to mind as I was watching it unfold and then watching after it is we actually got to see Curt Cignetti smile.
Yeah, yes.
He never smiles, man. So, listen. If you ever wondered how important front play is, watch the Penn State-Indiana game because Indiana got owned up front for the vast majority of that game, and it got them off schedule. It flustered them. But I will say this, in doing so, it also accentuated how good of an athlete and how good of a player Fernando Mendoza is. Because the plays that he had to make to keep things alive and to keep them in the game, the back shoulder throw to the tight end, simply sensational. And then not just the throw to get the ball off with people in his face to make the catch in the end zone, but did you really look at the feet when they kept showing the replay? And the right foot, as it hovers above the end line, right? While the left foot hasn't come down yet, but the left foot is inbounds. The right foot is hovering above by about that far, about a half an inch, and never touches the ground. And then the left foot taps beforehand. How about the call by the official making that call? Yeah. Holy smokes. But to get back to your original question, I absolutely believe in Heisman drives because I think I've shared this with you before. I think Heisman formulas, and this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to win a Heisman Trophy on the West Coast, is you have to play your best games or have one of your most marquee performances in the highest viewing window in a marquee matchup, likely on the road, where everybody sees it. And that's exactly what Fernando Mendoza did. Now, what will it mean for him? I don't know. But I think regardless of Heisman, regardless of whether he's a finalist, the guy is a top 5 overall draft pick, and he has shown it all year long.
He really did. Remember, they didn't have Surratt. Indiana didn't. They've only got Wisconsin and Purdue left. It looks like we're headed to a Big Ten championship game of Ohio State, Indiana, could be their first 1-2 matchup in the Big Ten since 2006, Ohio State, Michigan. Ohio State checked all the boxes in their win over Purdue.
Yep.
That's an interesting championship game when we get there, Ohio State and Indiana, because to your point, Indiana's front so disruptive.
Yeah.
And I thought Indiana had played physical all year long until Saturday where they got pushed around a bit. I can't wait to see if they can handle Ohio State's front seven.
Oh, I know. It's going to be unbelievable. And I think, when you look at that potential matchup, and let's just say you have a potential Alabama A&M or whatever it is, as you look at the college football playoff, we talked about this last week a little bit. Would the loser of either of those two games be out of the top four the following week?
Yeah, no way if they keep winning, yeah.
I think those four right now have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. And then, along the lines of the Big Ten, which is interesting, and I think this is something that nobody's talking about, is if USC wins out with Oregon on the slate, they might make the college football playoff, and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah,
out of the Big Ten, right? And who would have thought that 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Hey, that Oregon win at Iowa, though, man, I tell you, I know it's ugly, but that's Iowa football. I loved how Dan Lanning's team got that win there, and Dante Moore to former Bama receiver Malik Benson to set up that game-winning field goal. That's another one of those plays that get lost in all those big plays over the weekend. But without that play, Oregon goes down.
You're exactly right. And by the way, Indiana had the exact same struggles with Iowa at Iowa too. Remember, they won that game 20-15, had to score a touchdown late. Let's just acknowledge it's a hard place to play. Tremendous crowd, and you're playing against the defense, and if you don't have incredible patience, you're going to get frustrated and you're going to get out of your game. And I thought Oregon was incredibly well prepared, and I thought their poise and their temperament down the stretch when things got tight, they never wavered. No tremor in the hand, man. I mean, they were just ready for the moment, and it was terrible conditions, a wet ball all day, which I think affected both teams clearly. But I'm impressed with their ability to manage various situations during the course of the game and not get off course.
I would put that in one of Dan Lanning's most impressive wins because of the things you're saying. They're down with 1:51 to play, 16-15 on the road in a non-Oregon-like game, and they put together that drive and get a 39-yard field goal to win it. That's impressive because it's not what they usually do and how they usually do it. That's how you show growth. That's how you show that you could be a factor when we get to the playoffs. It was so bad for the ACC. I hate to move it this high into the show, but it was so bad for the ACC. Almost at the same time, Wake Forest beating Virginia. Wake becomes bowl eligible, by the way. And Cal beats Louisville. Cal becoming bowl eligible, by the way. Two great coaching jobs from Jake Dickert and Justin Wilcox again. Boy, when you were starting to think maybe the ACC could get multiple bids, despite what the selection committee showed us on Tuesday, that was a torpedo right into the side of that.
In the span of 2 weeks, the entire ACC has come crumbling down to the ground, and you didn't even mention the Duke-UConn loss, right? Yeah. Now, that doesn't affect the ACC, but what's crazy about that is Duke is still in a position to play in the ACC championship game, and let's just forecast and say some other crazy, chaotic things happen in the ACC, which is what we've seen so far. I can't believe we won't see it again. What would happen if the ACC is a 9-4 champ Duke, right? And the group of five, let's just say South Florida, is ranked above them, and the ACC is left without any team in the playoff, and that can happen.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
That can happen.
I forgot all about that rule.
So the ACC now is in a position where they're trying to get, obviously, they want Georgia Tech and Virginia to make the championship game, clearly, regardless of the outcome of the Georgia Tech game. But remember, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Virginia do not play each other.
Right.
Right. Pitt is the interesting card in this equation. Winners of 5 straight. but their last 3 games are Notre Dame, Miami, and Georgia Tech.
Oh.
So they have now a role in all of this. This thing is going to get so convoluted in the ACC. But yes, there is a shot for the ACC and their champion not to make the college football playoff.
I forgot about that rule, Luke. And with Duke being 1-3 in non-conference games, that is crazy. UConn, Illinois, and Tulane out of conference losses. So interesting disaster day for the ACC. Biggest game in the country, I guess, because game day was there, was Texas Tech and BYU. But this thing went, I mean, I know BYU was undefeated, but this thing went as scripted as almost usually, like Lance will tell me, always play against the public. The public had Texas Tech winning it, covering it. Everybody was like, BYU can't stay on the field with Texas Tech, especially at that place. And it was 29-7, but it wasn't that close.
No, listen, I will say this. I think when you play BYU, you better be buckling your chin strap, tightening them shoulder pads, make sure you got a mouthpiece in, because you're going to get your nose bloodied. That's how they play. And they're old, they're mature, they're experienced, they are physical. And that's the challenge for teams that play them. Can you match the physicality? And that, to me, was where I thought Texas Tech really showed up, man. Texas Tech bowed up against BYU. And I know Joey McGuire, I've known him well for 15 years. It was his greatest concern in that matchup was physically, can we stand toe-to-toe if they slap us a little bit? And I was incredibly impressed. And I'll tell you, Texas Tech, they are riding a razor-thin edge here because Baron Morton, their quarterback's been battling injury all year long. And remember, their backup's out with an ACL.
Yep.
Baron Morton is the entire fortune right now to the future of Texas Tech as it relates to the college football playoff. They have got to keep him upright. And so I like this Texas Tech team. And I'll tell you the other thing about this team is with all of the offseason talk about how they went out, they raised all this money and they bought this team and they went through it with NIL and they handpicked this guy, and this guy. That can easily backfire on you too, Jim, because you start throwing all of this money around and you start, putting together this roster. And it's just like Nick Saban said on game day 2 years ago, if you pay the wrong ones, you're SOL.
Yeah.
Right. And it can go the other way. And this team has gone out with the guys they paid, and those guys have performed at a high level and brought the results that were expected. And you've got it. That's coaching, that's ownership, that's accountability, coaches to players to staff. And they've gone out and they've done it. And it's been impressive.
Back to the SEC, speaking of impressive, can you make a case Texas A&M? I don't think they will, the College Football Playoff Committee. But can you make a case that Texas A&M is the second best team in the country? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point. But no. But Texas A&M, they're unbeaten for the first time, 9-0 for the first time since 1992. They easily beat Missouri, who is down to their true freshman quarterback, 38-17. They're just cruising along and down. They've got road wins at Notre Dame. They won at LSU. They won at Missouri now. That's an impressive road resume for Texas A&M. It
absolutely is. But this Missouri game was only the third team they've beaten with a winning record. Obviously Notre Dame was in that mix. But I think, is it fair to say, yes, they could be considered that? Yeah, they went on the road, got a big win, was able to do it, had some advantages against the freshman quarterback. But I think the thing that stands out about A&M where you would sit there and say, okay, it's their explosiveness. Like in every phase of the game, it just feels like every time you tune up and you look, it's like, all right, there's a punt return. There's a bubble screen going 70. Okay, well, there's a run on the ground. There's another. I mean, it's just like one thing after another. It's like they don't have guys where you break the huddle and there's nobody to not worry about. Like everybody is a concern right now for Texas A&M. And then as we've talked about through the year, their ability on defense and that run that they've had on third down and getting off the field has created so many more offensive series for them and possessions that it's really upped the productivity of the overall football team. I think, let's just say this. I think we're all looking forward to an A&M Alabama matchup.
In the SEC championship game.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would love to see it. I'd love to see it. And Kirby Smart probably would love to see it too. That way his team can just win out and not have to play in that game.
That's right.
And obviously Alabama and A&M both unbeaten in conference play. If they win out their final 2 conference games, A&M's got South Carolina and then Texas. Alabama has Oklahoma and then Auburn on the road. If they both win just this weekend, that's the likely matchup regardless of rivalry weekend. But still, those 2 games left. Everybody would love to see that. Speaking of Georgia, before we start looking ahead to the upcoming games this weekend, Georgia, Mississippi State. I'm sitting here watching Gunnar Stockton on the road with all those cowbells and stuff. Now, they ran it for 303 yards. That makes it easier on him.
Yeah.
But he looks like a different quarterback than, say, he looked against Alabama. And I guess Alabama can make you look bad. But we saw that
he's growing up too.
He does.
Right?
That's what I wanted to get to. He looks like he is getting very comfortable in this job. In fact, this whole Georgia team, since the halftime of Alabama, second half Alabama, and since then, that team has looked very comfortable in their own skin. I think they're going to be a problem for some people down the stretch here.
Well, I think the thing that's different about them is they just find a way, right? It's not like what we've seen, with some of those teams 4 or 5 years ago where they just went out there and they were just so much better than everybody else that, they could make mistakes. They could miss here. They could have a misassignment. This is a team that's kind of got to have some grit. And, you look at I was talking about the middle 8 that everybody talks about, the last 4 minutes of the second quarter, first 4 minutes of the third. Well, that's a 1-possession game with under 3 minutes to go in the second quarter. Georgia gets a stop on defense. They go ahead and they score on the screen to Zachariah Branch. They go in, so now they get that. They come out of the locker room, and they literally line up and just run the ball at Mississippi State. Zach Frazier has the big run on the ground, and then they score, and then they get off the field again. So what went from being a 1-possession game potentially before half became 31-7 like that. And then once that happened, and you talk about them kind of being comfortable with what they are, I just think this team realized that we're going to have to find a little bit of a different way sometimes, and we're not just going to go and boat race people. And they've accepted it, and they know it. I do like it, though. I will say this. I like it when Mike Bobo gets Gunnar Stockton involved in the run game, because I think that makes that offense a lot more dangerous when you allow him to run around and do something. Maybe they're wanting to protect him a little bit, but they've had a lot of success when they've done that.
They look good, and the SEC looks like they virtually have 4 teams locked into the playoffs, barring a ACC-like disaster with A&M, Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss, with Texas, Oklahoma, and Vandy lurking out there. We'll see what the selection committee says on Tuesday night and where you place all 7 of those SEC teams. Here comes Oklahoma, Alabama this week at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Before we jump into that, again, the Monday Morning Live with Tom Luginbill of ESPN, brought to you by our friends at roback.com. Promo code TNR20 gets you 20% off all the holiday gifts you have coming up. That's roback.com, promo code TNR20. All right, Oklahoma, Alabama. I'm going to say this. Toughest defense Alabama's offense has faced all year. Oklahoma, easily?
I think a combination of toughest defense, but also one of the toughest to prepare for, because they throw so much at you, and you're going to get something you haven't seen before. And it's not going to look like what it's going to be pre-snap. Your coverage is not going to be post-snap what you're seeing pre-snap. And this is where the comments you made earlier about Ty Simpson, I think, become hypercritical in the preparation side of it, of understanding what they're trying to do to you, how to either utilize it against him or get out of it and get into something else. But the recognition of it and the processing of it, I think, is going to be critical. And as I stated earlier, I just don't see. I think if Oklahoma is looking at the tape of the last couple of weeks, I don't think they would feel overly confident if they just let Ty Simpson sit back there and throw darts and pick them apart. So I would expect pressure. Now, could this be a game where out of nowhere, because I think the one thing that I do like about Alabama, they haven't given up on the run. They're not trying to run the football. It's still a part of what they'd like to be and have it be a part of their DNA. But boy, it would be a great week to have a healthy run game show up. That's for sure.
Well, let me ask you this. First off, on the run game thing, if the other team's bringing pressure, if they're blitzing, is there an opportunity there for Alabama to catch them in some blitzes with a key run? Can you run against a blitz? How does that work? Does that maybe help
absolutely.
Alabama?
I think there's great opportunities. Oftentimes the draw game gets spit out like that, and if you catch the right crease and they come after you and they've got what they think is the right call, but you've got the call that beats it. That's what can spring it, because now you're in man defense and there's nobody left at the second level, right? So I do think that can create some opportunities. I think it takes away a little bit, if you're going to play man-to-man defense, which you'll see a decent amount, it does allow Oklahoma to have more bodies in the box than you can block traditionally. So I think you're going to see probably a pretty heavy dose of box count from Alabama in relationship to when they pick and choose the opportunities to run it. Because I think that's the other thing too, Jim, when it comes to the run game now in college football, like you might have a called run, right? And then you get up to the line of scrimmage and they got 7 and you got 6. So you get out of it. It looks like you're not running the football, but that's not actually true. You're getting out of it because the numbers do not benefit you if you can't block one of their guys.
Yeah. See, that's why I love this show, when I get educated like that right there. Brent Venables, this is a talking point that when me and my Alabama friends are popping the cold ones and we're chatting and we're just griping and moaning about how Alabama gets dealt a raw deal. Oklahoma, another team with a bye week before they play Alabama. Brent Venables, they didn't play this past weekend. That's an extra week of prep where he's been able to scheme things up and to watch Alabama's signals so they'll know what's coming and all the Brent Venables stuff they're doing. Do I overplay that, or is that an advantage for Oklahoma to get that bye week and an extra week to prepare?
Well, if there's any truth to, as Lane Kiffin would say, Oklahoma does a really good job of studying signals.
Yes.
Not stealing, studying.
Right.
Then, yeah, I think that would be something to be worried about. I also believe it's going to get John Mateer healthier, hopefully help them. If you're Oklahoma and you're an Oklahoma fan, you got to get him back to looking like he did that first 4 or 5 weeks of the season before the injury. Now, obviously, the schedule has gotten incrementally more difficult, and so that's had an impact on Oklahoma offensively too. But, yeah, I would be concerned about that, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Alabama and that coaching staff, they're going to have a whole fresh set of, whether it's hand signals, whether it's what they're doing on the sideline, with whether it's their boards or how they're covering things up. But I also believe that it helps an awful lot now to be able to talk to the quarterback directly without having to use signals. And so if you can utilize that as your greatest component of communication and minimize how much you're having to deal with signals, I think that helps you combat the issue too.
Texas with a week to prepare for Georgia. Who do you like in Texas, Georgia? Give me a key there that you think is that's an interesting matchup. And for Texas, they need that win.
It's a great matchup, and I also think that Texas is probably playing the best football of the season over the last couple of weeks. And you could make an argument that Arch Manning, I mean, the game against Mississippi State, I thought was fantastic. He's had 2 weeks in a row where I think it's fair to say, okay, this guy's playing really, really good football, where everybody was expecting it to happen in the first 2 to 3 weeks. You're right. They are a snake in the corner, backed against the wall. They have to have this game. And I think they've kind of been playing with that mentality, Jim. I'm going to be very interested to see if Georgia, how they decide, because there's such familiarity between Sark and Kirby and Glenn Schumann, how they decide to deal with Arch Manning. Because the one thing about Arch Manning is he can take off and beat you with his legs. So if you try to affect him and disrupt him, he's not a sitting duck back there. And you don't want to give up big plays on the ground to Arch Manning and get that fueled. I'd be very careful with that.
And before you go, Notre Dame and Pitt starting the day off on ABC right out of the game day on ESPN, 11 o'clock. It's not an ACC game for Pitt, but for Notre Dame, it's their final really tough test of the season. It's almost a playoff spot game for Notre Dame. Win it, and they're likely in the playoffs.
Well, no question. And for Pitt, they've won 5 in a row. They haven't beaten anybody really that's any good. But the true freshman quarterback, Mason Heinchel, has played lights out. When Desmond Reed's been healthy, they've been a real problem on offense. And then defensively with Pat Narduzzi, they're gonna challenge Notre Dame. They know that they obviously got to realize that if you don't stop that big thoroughbred horse of a running back that Notre Dame's got in Jeremiah Love, then it's going to be a long, long day. So I think it's a tall challenge for Pitt, as are the final 2 after the Notre Dame game. But for Notre Dame, they've been a resilient bunch, man. They just keep getting better and finding ways.
Yep, should be a fun week, man. A lot of good games coming up. You get Alabama and Oklahoma. You get Georgia and Texas. Tricky Oregon-Minnesota game. Notre Dame and Pitt as you look down through the list there. BYU needs a win with TCU. A lot of good football coming up this weekend. And we'll talk about it next Monday on Monday Morning Live. Lugs, have a great week, okay, buddy?
Will do, man. Have a great week. I hope there's more chaos for everybody watching football because that's what makes it great.
Chaos fan, Tom Luginbill. Not me. I like it when the Blue Bloods win. Well, next round starts at the top of the hour. Lugs, have a great day. That's Monday Morning Live, everybody.